Although it might not be reflected in box office numbers, amazing horror movies are being made all around the world year after year. There's something about American films' profitability that seems to drown out other voices in the market at large. This means that a lot of phenomenal flicks go unnoticed until years later, maybe when some Hollywood studio decides it's time to produce an Americanized remake, or maybe the visionary, visceral videos never get the praise they so truly deserve. Such is life when Hollywood reigns supreme. This could be changing over the next little while, with many international flicks making bigger bucks than ever before. Whether it's a sign of changing tastes, or simply other countries coming up with the capital to produce and promote their own national cinema, we might not know for sure until we look back years from now. Still, most horror aficionados have known for ages the value of foreign film gems, and have been keeping their eyes wide open for entries from voices new and old from around the world. Less beholden to the North American idea of what makes things scary, these films bring fresh perspectives and breathe fresh new life and death into creepy and carnage-filled cinema. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be counting down the top 5 scariest horror movies not made in America. I did my best to make this list as geographically diverse as possible, but there are way more than 5 countries making horror movies out there. So if you think anything's missing and should be covered in a part 2, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Before we get into the thick of it, give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more international incantations. Outstanding. Let's get going. Kicking us off at number 5, we've got Audition. Takashi Miike is a revelatory filmmaker, basically setting the standard for modern J-horror as we know it. He also pretty much invented the torture porn genre with Audition. Eli Roth and the Soska sisters both cite it as a massive influence on them, and it shows. I dare you to watch Hostel and try to argue that it wasn't inspired by that torture scene at the end of Audition. Just try. This 1999 cult classic is about a widower named Aoyama encouraged by his son to find a new wife. Instead of going on dates and meeting people without pretense like a normal person, he enlists his film producer friend to set up some auditions for supporting roles in a made-up flick. That way he can make sure he's got all sorts of info on his potential suitors, and they won't be the divas typically associated with leading roles. After a few interviews, he becomes infatuated with a woman of questionable background named Asami. It doesn't take long for her dark past to start leaking into the relationship. Most of the movie consists of a detective-style tale with new details about Asami cropping up at every turn. Her references are dead ends, her places of work destitute, her apartment barren. She waits alone for days waiting for that call back. Although the movie itself starts out slow, almost like a romantic drama. However, plenty is revealed using dramatic irony, with the audience privy to a whole lot more information than Aoyama is. This allows a lot of tension to grow without the main character catching on too much. He's simply too impressed by this woman to care for the warning signs and red flags. It ends on a crazy strong note and poses plenty of questions to the audience. Does Aoyama deserve what he gets, like he so deeply believes? How much was a dream? How much was reality? Who is the story sympathetic to? How were you able to sit through that insane torture gauntlet? Chilling to its core, Audition plays with audience expectations at the perfect speed and leaves certain sounds and images burned into brains forever. Kitty 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 kitty. Coming in at number 4, Let the Right One In. Hailing from Sweden, this vampire flick is so much more than blood-sucking and stalking the night, although there's plenty of both for good measure. Directed by Thomas Alfredson, this is the story of a bullied, violent-minded 12-year-old who befriends a vampire child. It focuses more on the relationship between the kids while also taking a peek at the darker side of humanity. All this paired with some wicked bloodletting sequences makes for a horrifying and heartbreaking good time. Even without the vampire stuff, it would be a remarkably grim and upsetting movie about 2 down-on-their-luck kids tiptoeing on the edge of puberty. Imagine being prepubescent forever. Now that's a scary thought. Oscar, our protagonist, is obsessed with violence, keeping awful news clippings on his wall and staying strapped with his knife. Ellie, the vampire, is constantly on the move with a strange older man forced to live life by night as he does a very poor job providing for her. Let the Right One In manages to offer up plenty of violence and terror outside of the supernatural. Incessant bullying by Oscar's classmates lead to some gut-wrenching sequences, and Ellie's guardian tossing acid on his face to avoid recognition is enough to make anyone wince. And of course, the vampire bits themselves are wicked, blood-soaked, and wonderful. All the failed attempts to get a body to Ellie are gruesome and panic-inducing, which of course leads to our sun-stoked fire in the hospital room. One scene that stands out to me as particularly terrifying is the viscera-filled underwater pool fight near the end. Beautiful and brutal, as all good horror should aspire to be. Coming in at number 3, The Devil's Backbone.
Santi, por favor.
Guillermo! This 2001 Spanish-Mexican co-production is an example of gothic, ghostly horror as only Del Toro can do. Set near the end of the Spanish Civil War, we're introduced to an orphanage in a remote part of the country. Carlos, our protagonist and embodiment of innocence, enters the orphanage. Soon he'll discover many of the secrets hiding within, and he'll only half understand what any of it means. We also meet the terrible Jacinto, a janitor who was once an orphan himself, aligning himself with whoever he can profit most from. There's also Conchita, a one-legged teacher with gold bars hidden away, and Dr. Casares, the superstition-squashing doctor. Their stories provide a backdrop for the resident ghost, Santi, to moan and groan against. All this going on while an undetonated bomb sits in the middle of the yard, looming over the lives of everyone at the orphanage. Much like the war going off way in the background, this cannot be entirely ignored, no matter how badly people might want to. The whole story is an allegory for the war itself, along with the different people and political parties involved. Del Toro does an incredible job making sure that each story exists in harmony, never detracting from the other. The tragic ghost story is made more horrifying by the war, while the damage done by the war is personified by the ghost. Plus, the ghost sequences are absolutely jaw-droppingly spooky. Coming in at number 2, Wreck.
Abuela, quieta ahí. Quieta ahí, abuela.
Now this is a flick that knows how to do found footage right. So many other movies use found footage as an excuse to shoot everything cheaper. Yeah, it is cheaper, but they always half-ass the reason that characters are using the camera in the first place. Rec knows how to use its camera. Co-directors and writers Jaume Balaguero and Paco Plaza provide compelling motives for keeping the camera rolling as reporter Angela and her cameraman make their way into a soon-to-be quarantined apartment building. They keep the audience invested by ensuring suspension of belief is never broken, a problem often faced in found footage outings. I can boil it down to 3 big reasons. The camera is used for a TV show, so they have a reason to be there. Once they realize that a cover-up is being put in place by those quarantining them, they want to ensure that everything's documented, and the camera is a useful tool at many points, being used to look around corners and as a flashlight of sorts via night vision. I don't think that found footage has been used this effectively ever since, maybe with the exception of The Dirties by Matt Johnson. Go watch that too, just do it, trust me. The result of the camera being used effectively results in an extremely tense, fast-paced ride to the finish. Rec does not let up at any point, ending as abruptly as the first incident in the beginning. No soundtrack, no score, no extraneous noises, the tension is never inserted. It's pure, unadulterated, raw footage adrenaline. And lastly at number 1, Raw. I wrote this one while eating part of my lunch. It was a bad idea. Raw is a 2016 French-Belgian horror triumph, directed by Julia Ducournau. We follow a young vegetarian as she begins her first year at veterinary school, following in the footsteps of her parents and older sister. During a frosh event, she's forced to eat meat for the first time and soon develops an all-encompassing craving for flesh. Hazing is bad, okay? People might become flesh-eating monsters if you do it, alright? The terror in this flick is twofold. First and foremost, it's about cannibalism. Some of Raw's most terrifying moments are directly related to this consumption of forbidden meat. The bikini waxing scene comes to mind, but I won't reveal exactly what happens. What I will reveal is that my entire body recoiled at the result of this scene. We also have lots of other terrifying body horror bits, including the insane minute-long ordeal of vomiting knotted hair, and the morally reprehensible act of causing car accidents to gain access to fresh human corpses. Antiku ghouls these are not. The real horror doesn't come from the awful acts themselves though, but instead from the social sanction breaking mania that they induce. You get pulled into the story of Justine and her sister and must watch helplessly as they make abhorrent decision after abhorrent decision, leading to worse and worse situations. It's a story of human desire, of what fixations can be inherited, of how to get your hands on what you want, even if it's socially and morally wrong. Sexual awakenings can be scary as well, as demonstrated by stories like Carrie, with hunger, desire, and the demands of fitting in woven in as well. In Raw, once the binge drinking so often associated with post-secondary education starts, you sit there white-knuckled waiting for the next terrible decision to be made. And when it ultimately is, your heart sinks, but you still look on, hoping that the consequences won't be as bad as you're imagining. But they are. And they will be. This is a movie scary way beyond the gory body horror bits. It's scarier in its implications. Go give it a watch. Now that you've had 5 fantastic foreign flicks to go and watch, I would assume that you'll all be busy for the next few hours. But if you've already seen some of these or can't stand subtitles, then I implore you to answer some questions. What'd you think of the list? What is the scariest non-American movie you've ever watched? Make sure you fire your answers down below in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's have a look at some of your more misunderstood ones from the top 5 scary SCP-001 theories that will haunt you. The Horned King says, a big question about SCP-184. If it doesn't expand the exterior, only the interior, and it expands the universe, then what is the exterior of the universe? See, now you're asking questions that you don't want to know the answers to. These are the kinds of questions that get people disappeared, if you know what I mean. Azriazar27 says, are you just gonna stay quiet while SCP Foundation is under attack by a Russian? Of course not. For the folks confused by this comment, currently a man by the name of Andrei Duskin is attempting to illegally copyright all sorts of SCP content and leverage it for his own personal gain. The SCP Wiki is running a crowdfunding campaign right now to cover the legal costs of fighting this. Markiplier did a great video on it. I'll link the video and the crowdfunding campaign in the description. Lessa M says, the Tomato Prince. I've been laughing for 2 minutes straight. Hey. The strawberry supremacy is no laughing matter. Stop chuckling at the cherry-cheeked eminence. Dennis Bunick says, here are some great new ideas. 5 SCPs you could actually date, or 5 that could hold real jobs, or 5 you could have a beer with, or 5 with actual progressive policies, or 5... Keep going! I think this has some real potential, and it would make the writing process a lot more hilarious. All in favor say aye. And Ryan Mulligan says, you can have a little people jelly as a treat. What do I look like to you, a cat? That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I don't think... Who's whistling?